Hello and welcome to another Utah Tech Leads interview. Today we are here with Chris Harding. Chris, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yep, I am the Salt Lake County Auditor. I've been here since I won the special election in February, and I'm in charge of auditing the county, looking for fraud, waste, and abuse. And our office also has a property tax section that's in charge of putting out the notice of valuation each year.
Ooh, that's really interesting. So let's talk property taxes for half a second, because I know there's a lot of angry people out there about the property tax. And I was listening to this really boring conversation at the legislature about property tax, and their biggest concern was making sure that people understood that it wasn't the tax rate that went up. The tax rate did not go up. It's actually that their value went up, which is why they're paying more. So does your office have anything to do with valuation of property?
So no, the assessor does all of that. What our office is doing is we kind of act as a way to inform the public of, hey, here's the different taxing entities, whether it's school districts, could be the county itself, it wasn't this time around, or cities, sewer district, what they're intending to do with your rates. If they have an increased budget, they got to raise property taxes. So we want to get the notice of valuation out there so that people can go have their voices heard at those truth and taxation hearings that these entities are required to put on.
Oh, so it's like a don't shoot the messenger kind of
Yeah,
situation?
very much so. And in fact, if there is a problem with the valuation of your property, because that's what you'll dispute, not the tax rate, then you can submit an appeal to our office. You can do all that online, and then we'll make sure that your appeal gets a fair shake, that just the elected officials in the county, that their neighbors aren't getting the appeals passed through and the regular Joe Schmoes just getting denied, but that the county has to follow certain policies and procedures when looking at your appeal.
Interesting. That's really interesting. So you're kind of like the post office, essentially. You're a pass-through entity that you provide that information to the public, and then they assumedly don't come to you. But I kind of am curious, have you been getting a lot of complaints about the property issue?
We do get letters from all sorts of folks saying, put the other auditor back in. He only raised taxes X amount of dollars each year. And each one of those, anytime I want to air a grievance, whether I'm at a restaurant or interacting with a business or an entity, like, I don't want to express that to the person on the phone or whatever, but somebody who can actually make some change. So when I get those, it's like, man, yeah, I'm just the same as you. I don't want my property taxes going up. And we write them a letter to say, hey, here's the role our auditor's office plays, and here's where you want to go, whether it's to the taxing entity, whether it's filing an appeal, and kind of find them the right avenue so that they can air their grievance.
I kind of feel bad for all of the people working in the office right now. You probably have a lot of people who are taking a lot of heat that they don't necessarily deserve.
Yeah, but they're great. They handle it. It's nice being able to even just to apologize to someone, being on the other end and say, I'm sorry that this is happening to you. Let me tell you where you can go to get some help or to find the right person you're wanting to talk to. And that generally calms it down. A lot of people, they just want somebody in government to acknowledge that they're struggling, and our folks do a great job of that.
Yeah, and it's definitely been a season of change over the past several years as property values continue to increase. I know in my home has dramatically increased, and it's been a little shocking to realize that not only do you have that much value in your home, but you get to pay for that much value that's in your home now. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So you mentioned, so you guys don't actually assess property taxes. That's a different office. But you also mentioned the issue of fraud and waste and that kind of government spending that we all hear about and talk about pretty regularly. So your work is relatively popular, especially when it comes to the actual news cycle. But what is your actual work? Like, what do you as the county auditor do?
Yeah, it's I find it exciting. Anytime I start talking about this at home, my wife kind of starts to nod off. But I find it way exciting, and I feel bad. I feel like the auditor's office has kind of been neglected in that area, because even folks here in the government center, when I first started, they were like, they'd pull me aside, like, I'm not trying to be rude or anything. What do you guys actually do in the auditor's office? And to explain to people, look, you have to pay your property taxes. You don't get to say, no, I don't want to invest in Salt Lake County. I've got all these services like roads, the fire department, police, and you are compulsory to pay your property taxes. It's not like a public company where you can choose to invest in it. And the auditors at a public company, that public company is required to go and get auditors that look at their company and say, yeah, they're running things. Can give a reasonable assurance that there's no fraud, waste, and abuse. But for the longest time, the auditor's office in the county, the citizens have not gotten those protections. We've been kind of short-staffed and whatnot. We've had predecessors that haven't necessarily followed the standards, but yeah, we get to act as that control. We have an annual audit plan each year where we assess the risks throughout the county government. Are there new programs starting? COVID is just a huge global audit risk. People are having a tough time. They're having to isolate in their home. Maybe they're worried about income. These are all red flags. Of course, employees that have been working in county government for years and have always come in every day. Now they're finding ways for them to do work at home. I mean, that's we're kind of on the tail end of that right now, but those all increase the risk of fraud, waste, and abuse. And it's our job to go out there and find it. One of the best things that an audit program does is it gives the perception that somebody could be looking. If the tone in your organization, such as Salt Lake County, is that, when was the last time the auditors came through and audited us? Then nefarious activities have a way of cropping up and happening more often. But if people see that the auditors are out there, they're looking at programs, they're going into departments, they're asking questions and verifying facts and figures, processes, internal controls, then it helps to curb that. And we're having a lot of success. We've hired the county gave us 2 new auditors, so we have about a team of about 10 auditors. We're going to look to grow the office a little bit more in November, maybe 2 more, and just see where that takes us. We're having a great time.
That sounds fantastic. So, I mean, we have a relatively conservative statewide government, and so fraud and abuse is a big deal. And you mentioned, especially after COVID and everybody tending to move to the digital side and work from home, it allows for a lot more wiggle room where there used to not be as much. Are there specific instances, and it doesn't necessarily have to be within the county, of types of fraud that auditors can regularly pick up on and manage within their own government?
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing in the county government is just not everybody's an auditor. We understand that, but people get in the habit of if they're running the golf course, they're thinking about green fees. How do we keep the lawn green? How do we get people in here? And they don't really have training in auditing. And it's not that they're by any chance bad people or derelict in their duties, but they're just not thinking that the same person who maybe takes the green fees over the counter and makes the deposit at night and then reconciles the bank records shouldn't be the same person. Those duties should be divided up. And that's an easy way for our auditors to detect whether it's in Parks and Recs or another department, and where we go in and just say, kind of show us your process. How are things going? And they'll talk about stuff. They'll walk us through their processes, and our auditors can see oh, here's a trouble spot. But then when we go and do our testing, and maybe we'll say, let's look at the last few months worth of deposit records and check them to what your bank statement says. And that's one of the ways we found some problems here in the county was deposits were on the deposit slip, but then the bank said, we only had deposits during this time, and the deposit slip was 10. Well, then we start asking questions, what happened here? And yeah, sure enough, it was someone who had been working for the organization for a while, and just, it's all about the fraud triangle. They had the opportunity to do it, the motivation, I'm not getting paid enough, or maybe my boss is a jerk, and they feel like here's a way to make up for it. So, our auditors will hone in right on that stuff.
It seems so crazy, the thought of defrauding government, like of all organizations to attempt to defraud, like you'd have to be pretty ballsy, for lack of a different term, to try and do something like that. Either that or pretty dumb. I don't know which one. It's, probably a little bit of both.
It's funny with fraudsters, the Association of Certified Fraud Examiners talks about this, that people who commit fraud, it's this rationalization. Even when they talk to a fraudster, those people don't think of themselves as a bad person. I'm a good person, but I was in a whatever situation, I was being taken advantage of, and they find a way to justify it. So I think that a lot of these times, maybe it crosses their mind, am I doing something that's risky? And like the outside person would say, yeah, you should take the money and deposit it in the bank. You shouldn't try and risk that someone's not going to follow up on your work. But they don't think about it that way. And then, Monday morning rolls around and the new bank statements come. Nobody's caught them, and a week goes by, a month, and they're like, wow, nobody noticed that. And then they get in the habit and they do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just kind of spirals and continues and gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Are there instances in the state of Utah that you're aware of where an auditor was able to catch such kind of a fraud?
I wouldn't say specifically. I know the state auditor's office, they do a lot of great work up there. If you watch the news stories every now and then, there was a great one just a few months ago where an employee at UTA, I don't want to throw any organization under the bus, but this person had absconded with, it was like in the millions of dollars of change that they had taken. And so if you're internal controls, just a basic segregation of duties aren't established, nobody comes in with the badge that says, hey, I'm a fraudster, I'm looking to rip off the company. But you've got to have that mentality that it is happening. There is fraud, waste, and abuse happening somewhere in Utah right now, probably somewhere on the floor of this building, maybe. And if you have that questioning mind that not everybody is honest, everybody's not a fraudster either, but that trust with verification mentality, it'll go a long way.
So you're talking a little bit about processes and how that can also help. And I know that our industry is very organizationally developmental focused. So there's a lot there that when we have somebody who is new to an organization who can come up with ideas that dramatically reduce waste and increase efficiency, what kind of processes have you or your office been able to institute when it comes to those kinds of systems within the government?
So I think we live in a great digital age. Utah Tech Leads is perfect. They're pushing the digital and the technological advantages. One of the things our office did was we try and find paper processes, and the appeals process was a huge one. We used to have boxes all over our offices. We would get people filling out their property tax appeals on paper and sending it into us. It'd have to go through the mail. The mailman would have to touch it. Someone in our office would have to open it up, figure out which tax person it's going to, and we've looked for ways to move that process all online. That's something we're considering with the notices of valuation as well. We have some, I think, cool plans. If you recall the notice of valuation, I wish I had it, but you get it in the mail. It's got your property tax listed. We're thinking of making a way to put a QR code on there that is specific to each property owner, so that, and I know a lot of people might not know how to use it, but they could easily take a picture of that QR code, and it would give them a digital version of their notice of valuation, but where we could actually give them more information, like they could click on where the truth and taxation meeting is going to be held, what time, how far away it is from their house, get it on their schedule. We could make it so that there's help videos to kind of explain who this entity is. Maybe it's the school district and why are they raising their rates, and be able for them to have some information where they can link to the entity, the school district or whatever, with a landing page to help, because that's the biggest thing is information. When you don't know why your rates, your property taxes are going up, that's what's most frustrating. I think the frustration will still be there, but it will be lessened if we can just educate and give more information to the voters.
It's totally understandable and an honorable goal in my humble Salt Lake County living opinion. So I greatly appreciate that idea. So tell us what else you specifically do in your role as the county auditor. Like, how big is your office? How many people do you manage? What does like a day in the life of Chris Harding look like?
Well, good question. So our office, we're down here off of 21st South and Redwood Road. In the auditor's office, we have two divisions, the property tax and the audit. We've got about 11 or 12 on the property tax side, and about we're a little bit bigger now, about 12 or 13 on the audit side. And then, of course, myself, my deputy, and policy advisor. A typical day, it all depends on the time of the year. If it's the time when notice of valuations are going out with, we might be discussing what's going on with those. Maybe the contracted printer has sent us the proof for the changes we've made. We want to look that over. Maybe we're interacting with different parts of the government on a committee that we're on, talking about debt, or it could be something that's in the news, COVID, how the county's going to handle it, or it could be dealing with, depending on where our auditors are at in field work, maybe we're getting ready to issue a report. So we want to make sure that all of our findings supported? Have we asked management for their comments? Then when are we going to get on the county council schedule? It could be a myriad of things. That's one of the things I love about working here is no 2 days are the same. And oftentimes you come into the office with all these things on your calendar, and by lunchtime, it's like you've thrown that plan out and you've got a whole set of new priorities and things that you're doing for the day. Yeah, it's a fun place to be.
So how do you interact with the county mayor and the county council? Like, how is that relationship, especially as kind of a monitoring part of the government? You kind of watch what they do and make sure what they do is accurate. So what's that relationship like?
Yeah, it can be a delicate dance because you want to, it's always better to over communicate and instead of the other way around. When we're issuing an audit or when we're doing the field work, we want to find problems as early on as possible so that we can start the corrective actions or the recommendations right there with management. But we don't want anybody to be blindsided. If some department falls under, say, the mayor's portfolio or the treasurer's, and we identify a problem, we want to communicate that. We don't want them to have to wait for a report 2 months down the road where maybe they're watching the county council meeting and we get up there and say X, Y, and Z is going on at this department. We want to communicate that to them early, and especially in this political day and age, we want to assure them, look, as auditors, we want to be independent, objective, impartial. This is not a gotcha game. And that was something we really had to hit home right after I won the election in February, because you've got all these other offices and politicians. They've never worked with me before. And those first few times we got in front of the council, which is something that a lot of the past auditors didn't do, report their findings. They just stick an audit out there on the web page and say, whoever wants to read it, whatever. But we want to, again, bring that education back, show people what we do, and we don't want to blindside anybody. We want to make sure that here's the problem, here's why it happened, and get that all out up front and work with them. That because you find a problem in one department, chances are it's happening in other places in the government. And I think when people understand you're not out there to point a finger or throw them under a bus, that we're part of a team and we want to work together just to be a better government organization, that they welcome that feedback. They want to change. They see how a lack of segregation of duties or internal controls, why that's a problem, and they want to fix it. So it's fun.
So as the county is kind of destined to continue growing, what kind of growth do you see for your office specifically?
Well, yeah, that's we are getting to the point where we have almost reached the physical limitations of people we can have here. And as the county grows and as the need for more auditing happens, it's going to be interesting to see if we can free up some other areas in government, or maybe we could get some more space. But yeah, it all comes back to being able to do a proper risk assessment and annual audit plan. Because the state auditor, they're a little bit bigger than us. Well, they're probably like double the size, but geographically, they've got a way bigger area that they have to audit, more dollars. But it comes down to the risk assessment. Where are the highest dollars at? Where's the most risk? Where should we spend our auditors' time and effort, and just looking at it like that? Because you can't look at every dollar. You can't guarantee 100% there won't be fraud, but you can do a really good job at mitigating it, bringing that risk down, and educating other parts of the county to kind of lead in their own respective area, to be like junior auditors, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. So what else does your office do? Like what's going on right now? Is there anything that you can talk about that you guys are working on, or anything exciting happening?
Well, exciting to the extent possible. We just finished getting out the notice of valuation, and this is another thing that the leadership in our office does. We're wanting to get suggestions. We met with the Utah Taxpayers Association the other day to say, hey, you're getting our notice of valuation. What are your suggestions? This is an organization that represents a lot of taxpayers, and they know what the little guy is thinking, and so we reach out to them because we can kind of be an echo chamber here in our office. We want to get out and find out what are some other ways our office can improve, and then between now and when the notice of valuations get printed and sent out next year, we're going to be working on ways we can change that notice of valuation. Definitely working with our tech people here in the county to try and make some of those digital solutions, digital outreach happen. On the audit side, that's just a continuous thing. We finish one audit, we follow our audit plan and go to the next. A lot of the new things we're doing too is with the new folks that are coming on board. We've hired 4 new auditors in the last handful of months, is getting them up to speed on what's going on in the county and training them, and then just making sure that the office is happy, a well-oiled machine. So
Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility for a relatively ill-known organization, I would say. There's a lot that you guys have going on. Well, that's all I've got for you. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I really appreciate this chance to kind of help educate those that are out there and have that question, what does the auditor do? We really appreciate it.
So friendly reminder to all of you watching, if you got your property tax valuation and you're upset about it, don't yell at the auditor's office. You can call the assessor's office and yell at them, but don't yell at the auditor's office. Well, thank you so much, Chris. We really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will talk to you very, very soon.